So I'm sure there's lots of questions especially after Neil and Alan's presentations. So we're going to do a general Q&A after this presentation, so we can dig in, because I know there's, this is supposed to be a technical crowd, a technical and partner-oriented crowd. So I imagine there are lots of questions about what you just saw, but I'm really excited. I was actually quite surprised with Neil's presentation. I really loved the angle we gave of somebody who has just been literally introduced to our own solution and thrown into the water to build something really cool. So I hope everybody enjoyed that, and look forward to seeing some of your questions about that after we finish this talk. So again, great to be here with everyone. See lots of familiar names and lots of new names on the attendee list. And we're going to change gears here a little bit and want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing kind of in the industry, in the market, that may affect the way you run your business as partners or potential partners. It may also affect the way you think about serving internal clients if you're a developer or you are a person that is supporting ProcessMaker for a large organization. We have customers ranging from large multinationals with 250,000 users, I think is a couple of our clients. One of our clients has more than 250,000 users, and they have a team of about 30 developers that build things for those users, literally hundreds of business processes. And so they look at ProcessMaker in one way. We have partners that are building applications for resale to their customers. And then of course we have partners that are delivering services on top of ProcessMaker. So we're trying to keep all of those perspectives in mind in this particular webinar series. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about an idea and a concept that may be somewhat new to most of you, and it's around this idea of composable applications and how composable applications are really changing the face of business process automation. And again, I had not had a chance to see what Neil was going to speak about, but it really plays well into this. So I'm excited to that you've already seen that presentation. So let's get started. First of all, let's talk about what I'm hoping to cover today. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction. I know Freddie did some of this in the beginning, but for those of you who are new, who we are, a little bit about where we're going. So I'll give a little reflection on the last 12 months and the next 12 months of our business. 12 months now in technology is literally an eternity. I mean, we thought it was moving fast before, but it's moving so fast now that it's it's really incredible to look back and to look forward and share that with you. Then we'll get into the kind of meat of the presentation, which is starting with digital transformation. What really is digital transformation? If it wasn't a buzzword before COVID, it became probably the largest buzzword during COVID. So I think this kind of leads into this idea of the composable apps and pre-packaged business value. This is a pretty interesting concept of where we think the market's headed and how we're going to better support you as partners and developers to kind of bring this to your business and your ecosystems. And then we'll give you an example of it, an example of how we're applying this concept into our business in one of our key verticals, which is rapidly evolving, which is in the banking sector. So first, who is ProcessMaker? Most of you, I'm guessing most of you know us quite well by now, but might not keep up with all of our news. So again, we're really excited with the traction that we continue to get, continue to be a leader in G2, a leader in Gartner in their most recent IBPMS business report. We're excited to know that another large analyst will be featuring us in a report coming out here in the next 2 months as well. And then a string of other awards, including the 2020 CODI, which is a really prestigious award for the best digital process automation solution. So if you had missed that, I'm excited to keep you up to date on kind of that and where we're going. I always like to take almost any opportunity to just kind of reflect and give you a better view of where we came from. So many of you may not know this. So 2000, I founded the business, co-founded it with a childhood friend of mine. We founded in Miami, Florida. That's important because you'll see we've got some other places, and we've moved since then. From 2000 to 2008, we were actually trying to do something very different. I won't go into that, but in 2008 is when we really got started with ProcessMaker. We launched the community edition. This was an open source edition. You'll see we are still very much in touch and dedicated to our open source roots. I know that we gave reference to our GitHub site. There's a lot of things to look at on there. We do open source a lot of our technology. 2011, we hadn't yet started offering subscriptions. It was just our open source, and we were just a few people offering some professional services around our code. And then in 2011, we got a call from a very large bank saying, "Hey, we've been using your open source. We'd love to send you a check and get some support." And we said, "Well, great. You know, that's what we're hoping for." So that was the beginning of the turn into a subscription software company as opposed to a services company. So that was kind of important for us. 2013, we passed 1 million open source downloads. 2017, we began to re-architect our platform. And I know there'll be some questions about that at the end, and we really want to address those. So we made a couple business decisions in 2017. We looked at our business and we said, we need to re-architect our platform. Platforms, I've heard it said a number of times that when you're in the market for a decade, you accumulate a lot of technical debt. And sometimes you can make incremental changes, but sometimes you also need to make a more abrupt change. And we decided to do that, and the result is phenomenal. It's what you saw Alan showing just a couple of moments ago, Neil implementing before that. And it was really to modernize the entire stack we're using, make sure we could attract the best and brightest because we're using the right kind of tooling. And at the same time, we also moved our headquarters. We were very much a distributed company. We continue to be a very distributed company, but we did move our headquarters to Durham, North Carolina, which is a complete technology hub and one of the fastest growing ones in the US. In 2018, we kind of made another turn in our business, which is to start really focusing on what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, which is these composable applications. And this is really what I also call the application of the business world. So the application of the personal world has already happened. You know, everyone on this call has got one of these right next to them, I'm sure, right? And filled with, well, mine's filled with probably 200 apps. So I don't know how many apps you've got on your phone, but personal application has been happening for quite some time. Came as a result of the iPhone. And so it's no surprise, or it shouldn't be a surprise, that business consumption of solutions is following suit. So we've started taking a turn into this, and I'll talk more about this. And we really began beta development of what we would call our first Applified solutions. In 2019, we launched our first true solution offering. So we've always been building solutions, but we had never sold a pure solution. We sell a platform for partners and developers to build on. But now we're also developing very particular solutions, end-to-end solutions where we have full teams dedicated to those solutions. And we build those on our platform. So again, to a reference Alan made of eating our own dog food, it's a great testing ground for us because we believe this is the way that many of you should be building business value and focusing your efforts. And we're doing the same thing. So we're able to test what Alan's team is building, basically what the platform team is building. In 2020, we also continued our focus on major OEMs. So just as we build our own apps, we have to be able to deploy them, support them, upgrade them, control the versions on them. We also realize that what we're building is extremely useful to others that have business expertise that we don't have in certain markets and don't intend to have. And so we find that OEM or white label is a very natural part of our business. So if you have specialized business knowledge, so we heard from P2 today, they are the world leader in upstream oil and gas business. And so, for them to be able to build that part of that business on ProcessMaker is something that we want to support. It's a market that we would never be able to go at it by ourselves. but the technology we're building absolutely enables it. And so that's why OEM is a key part of our business. And we have a number of really important OEM partners, a number who are on this call today. And in 2021, for those of you who didn't see our announcement, we made a very important announcement. We did raise Series A, and that was after basically 20 years of being a completely bootstrapped business. And so, why did we do that? Well, we raised $45 million because we believe that the world is moving much faster than before. We want to be able to continue to invest in our technology. We believe we have a emerging leadership position, and we had accomplished a number of things we wanted to accomplish, which was re-architecting our platform, moving our headquarters, building a much stronger US presence, and now we want to take it to the next level. We still want it to be, and for me, I am still here, and this is still a founder-led company, and we very much believe in that. But we also believe that we can that partners added a great deal of value to help us achieve everything that we can achieve as a company. Today, we're about 400 customers, paying customers in 52 different countries. There's thousands of open source users, of course. We're running about 50 million yearly cases, requests, depending on what you call it. Open source is not something the download is not something that gets measured too much anymore, but we're over 2 million downloads, 160 global employees, 3 million users across that customer base. And yes, we've been in business for 20 years. Here's some of our customers, and really you'll see every type of industry represented: manufacturing, banking, higher education, pharmaceuticals, you name it. There we do have them as a customer segment. So now, just reflecting a little bit the last 12 months. What was that like for us? Well, like many of you, of course, COVID was the dominant theme. We sort of looked around in March and April and wondered what our business would be like. Very quickly realized that we would be able to continue really without any disruption. And in fact, digital transformation at that point became a critical business focus. So in many ways accelerated much of what we're doing. We began the verticalization of key markets for us. So the ones that we're spending a lot of time in: higher education, banking, manufacturing, and the OEM space. That's not to say that we don't have customers in others, but these are places where we're dedicating teams to developing core technologies and core processes on our platform. SOC 2 is a very important certification in the US. Pretty much impossible to work with the banking industry if you're not SOC 2 certified. We are SOC 2 certified. And we will be looking forward to a ISO 27001 certification actually in a few months here. And when COVID hit, one of the things we did was start looking at our platform and saying, well, what could we build? So we thought it was original at the time. Turns out lots of people were building similar things, which were these COVID apps. Do you have a cough? Do you have a temperature? Can you come to work? We did, a number of our customers did implement those. In fact, we're running about 20,000 checks a day for one of the largest human capital businesses in the world, publicly traded company I can't name here, but they deployed it for all of their workers to make sure that they were following correct COVID protocols. We had a number of state and local governments reach out to us for immediate implementation of processes that they needed to implement, and that was pretty fun, pretty fun thing to work on in March and April of 2020. Latest news, as I had mentioned before, we did achieve SOC 2. We launched another very important OEM partnership in the banking, in the fintech space with a company called Abrigo. We continued our G2 crowd leadership. And this was an article that came out in the Wall Street Journal in January about our exciting Series A raise. And one thing to note here, which I think is just a fun point of reference, you'll see all the heaters. Of course, this was January. We were meeting outside. All of our due diligence meetings were conducted outside. In this day, it was particularly, it was around 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So you could see us surrounded by heaters. Another thing we've done this year is, this was this year, opened an additional office in Hyderabad, India. We plan to grow a number of positions there in our 24/7 teams and some back office functions as well. Next 12 months, what are we looking forward to in the next 12 months? Well, a big part of this is what I'm going to talk about with regarding composable applications. So it's really around the further applification of our solution offerings. So specifically in banking and higher ed, where we are going much deeper than we've ever gone. So again, this is a big difference to delivering a platform. It's still quite a big difference from delivering a platform with templates. And so some of you might be thinking, oh, it's just templates, and it's really not templates. It's taking full end-to-end responsibility for processes. And we'll give you an example of how we do that in banking, because we think that it's a good model for a lot of our partners to be following. We're focused on building out our global support centers and technology teams. We are hiring literally all over the globe right now. I'm very excited about that. As Alan showed, so again, I know there are a lot of customers out here that are on our ProcessMaker 3 platform and have not yet migrated, and that's fine. We have been slowly reaching full parity. So from a new customer standpoint, we reached full parity quite a while back, but from an existing customer standpoint, where there are very small features that you might feel you need in order to think about deploying or migrating to ProcessMaker 4, we've been working on that. And so that is something we continue to work on, and we're really there. You can see, if you're familiar with the other platform, you can see basically everything you were used to and so much more, because again, the engineering in the new platform is literally light years ahead of what we were doing before. That's exciting. And the other thing we recognize is that if you are on the older platform, you're saying, well, what do I do? Well, we have begun providing some migration pathways. We're taking customers in chunks. So first we were focused on getting the new product out, which means it's really for new customers. And so many of our customers are happy on our existing platform and are already delivering great business value that there's no rush to migrate. We have not announced any sort of end of life for that platform, and we wouldn't think of doing that until we have a clear migration pathway. So for those on the current platform, that really will become a focus as we move into 2022. We've developed some of those initial tools. We've tried some of those initial tools, and we're developing a number more of tools for that. We are continuing to build both open source and enterprise tooling to more easily create business component-based offerings. Again, this will get into this idea of prepackaged business capabilities. And I stress the word open source and enterprise because, again, our open source is extremely active. And the newer open source, again, you'll now see everything on GitHub. Everything that we do in the core is released, and we've got some pretty interesting and large entities that are now beginning to work on that as well. So we're really excited about that. And then for our own use and for our OEM and white label partners, you saw Daniel Ryan's talk about how we're managing multi-tenant deployments, and we're really excited. That was a pretty big project for us. We've developed this great management layer that allows you to run a business at scale with many different types of apps that you may have to deliver to your customers. And so that's something we're continuing to build out, continuing to work on. Lots of considerations there around versioning, publishing, maintenance. So that's something that's built into the way we deliver our solution and applications on top of our solution. And so we believe we can really support our OEMs and white labels quite well. So the roadmap, Alan talked a good bit about this, but just giving a little bit of a bigger picture view of 2022. January release, we will continue to work on a few back parity type features. We'll also be launching a payments feature set in ProcessMaker, a payments business capability, which we're really excited about. As you can imagine, lots of processes may start or end with a payment, especially business critical processes, especially public facing processes. And that's something that usually we in our previous platform, we didn't have. Plenty of people used it that way, but we're now packaging it and we'll be offering it inside the platform. In our March update, we will look to offer a great deal more of advanced permissioning. So there's a lot more we can be doing in permissioning. So that'll be a massive permissioning update. And we begin we will begin to support Azure as a cloud. Today we are only on AWS. June, we're going to focus on the sharing and publishing and migration tooling. So as I mentioned, we're building a number of different migration tools. We've been working with those, been experimenting with those, want to get those to be quite a bit better before we start sharing those and offering that as a pathway for those that do want to move. And then sharing and publishing, again, very important for us internally, very important for OEMs, and very important for larger clients that are managing many applications and many processes. Troubleshooting tooling, there's lots that we can be doing there. We do a lot through third-party partnerships. So whether that's advanced logging, we pass logs today to Sumo Logic, but there's a number of things that in the tooling that we know that users are looking for, so we will look to deliver those as well. And then in January of 2023, or call it late 2022, we hope to be adding some big new capabilities, which I won't be announcing here. We'll be announcing those in a much bigger announcement at a later date. So what do we do today, and how does this affect where we think the market is going? So, everybody talks about digital transformation, and that this is part of a bit broader trend towards digital transformation. I'm actually not a big fan of the word digital transformation. So instead of digital transformation, we really like to talk about strategic transformation. Nobody cares if you're just changing the digital systems. It's really about, can you affect your strategy and affect business outcomes by making a change? For us, again, that means this translates directly into this idea of applications, and for us specifically, more customer and external user facing applications. That's really where we believe that it's easier to feel the effects of a strategic transformation. So what do I mean by strategic transformation? Well, ultimately, we're all in business to drive profitable growth. There are lots of other priorities, but a business by nature is about being profitable. Although sometimes you look at the markets today and you might question that, but really it is about driving profitable growth. So that we want to start with that end in mind. Well, how do we do that? We need to be able to, in today's market, innovate extremely rapidly. And that is really where most businesses are stuck. I'd say the vast majority of the businesses in the world are stuck because they're just not able to adjust quickly enough. And COVID was a massive wake-up call, which is why transformation became a big buzzword if it wasn't before. So what does innovation mean for us? Well, really, it's about delivering this exceptional customer experience. So if you're delivering a better customer experience and you're innovating to do that, you will probably be able to stay ahead of your competition. Well, how do you deliver that exceptional customer experience, and how do you deliver that innovation? Well, we need to enable staff to do it. If there's just one person on your team who can do it, if it's one developer who goes off into a corner and comes back with some magic code that somehow does something, tends to not be very well connected to the business decision makers, and to places where value can be driven. And of course, along the way, we want to mitigate risk. We don't want to do any of this if it's we can't just launch a new service that perhaps is not going through the right motions. If it's a new account opening process, and we need to make sure, well, we've enabled background checks in that, or to our own onboarding process. We make sure that that's enabled in our onboarding process. So this is, again, all about driving profitable growth, and that's how we get there. So that's great, but here's the kind of the big argument that I want to make in today's presentation, and that is that there is a big change happening in hyperautomation, in digital transformation. So what is that change? Well, let's ask the question. And the question I would ask is, are platforms dead? I was at a really interesting business conference about 5 years ago, actually at one of our OEM conferences, actually somebody who's on the call today. And I remember having a chat with the CTO at the conference. This is a very large ERP, and the CTO said to me, he said, well, we're the largest player in the world in our vertical. And the fact is, we see that there are a series of changes coming, And when you're the largest, of course, everybody is out to get you. And everybody means, you know, in every garage, there could be two recent graduates from somewhere who are just developing a new way to do things. So ultimately, he said, the platform war, we have to prepare to lose it. And I thought that was really, really interesting statement. And they said the way we prepare to lose it is by de-emphasizing that that focus and that importance of a platform. And so this was 5 years ago, and he said, well, we're moving everything up because we think everything is going to be essentially one big API. And so if we're going to lose at the platform level, we want to win at the API level. And we want all of the metadata in our ecosystems and in our markets to flow through our API. And to do that, that means we're going to allow lots of partners to connect to us and accept that slowly people might eat parts of this more monolithic ERP structure. Now that is not, although it was pretty interesting at the time when I heard it, since then I realized, of course, that's not a unique view of the universe. This idea that there's this mega platform, the mega platforms began opening up APIs. Just about every mega platform did so. You know, you have real hold-offs like SAP. You know, SAP kind of tended to dominate the world, so they kind of for a long time thought, well, we can get away without opening up APIs. In fact, we'll open up some things, but we'll make it extremely difficult to connect to our data. And so this idea of moving from a platform to APIs and essentially to data being king and data being where all the value is held, this has been the shift that I would say has been happening over the last 5 years. But there's another twist to that shift, and that's where I'm going to get to here in the next few slides. So we're starting with the idea that platforms are dead, and really, it was announced to me by this very large platform. The ultimate platform is the ERP. And that was kind of said to me 5 years ago. So for me, there was no question. Platforms are a dying breed. So what about low code? We offer a low code platform. Well, we try not to use the word platform for the reasons I just discussed. And I'll explain why, again, I think that that's changing. We're preparing for that change. So first of all, if you're a low code platform, you're definitely going to be dead in 5 years. And the reason for that is because everything will be low code. So low code will not be something special. Today, it's extremely special. But it is a rapidly evolving feature set, and it will be baked into everything at some point. Now, I say that with a grain of salt. There will still be low-code platforms, but we'll see in a moment they'll become very, very, very specialized. So the other thing is, it's not just the low code, but if you look at the likes of Gartner and Forrester, they tend to break everything out into quadrants and reports and terms, and they're always coming up with new terminology. So every day we're talking about various markets here at ProcessMaker. We're talking about BPM. BPM has died and then come back to life many, many times. It's kind of an interesting term. RPA, that's a really hot term, although almost all the Gartner reports about RPA are extremely critical these days. iPaaS, integration platforms as a service. That would be like your MuleSofts on the high end or your Zapiers on the low end. And then case management kind of poked its head up and then sort of kind of went back down for a while. So nobody really cares about these platforms or where the intersection is, right? Why don't they care about it? Well, because they're worried about business value, and so nobody tends to think like the analysts think. And nobody wants this big clunky platforms anymore, this big clunky software. We started with desktop software in the 80s, client server kind of arrangements. We moved towards these more monolithic packages, then came SaaS, then came very specific SaaS or cloud offerings. And now we're getting into the era of composable applications. So again, we'll talk about what that really means. And the point is that the world is reorganizing itself, and it's reorganizing very, very rapidly around business functionality delivery. So that is very different than the message I heard 5 years ago, which was we need to break up the platform into a series of microservices because everybody, or REST APIs, because everybody is going to be accessing data. That is where I think the change is coming. It is not about microservices and APIs. So we went, in essence, the way I see it, we went a little too far. we took these platforms and broke them down and said everything is just a series of APIs. Give me the Swagger document and I can kind of do anything I want. And you have that in ProcessMaker. You don't have to use any of our interfaces. You can access everything through an API. But ultimately, do we really want to get that granular? Not really, because again, if we go back to the business and where we're going to drive value, and that is trying to drive profitable growth, and we're trying to be innovative in the business sense, then we probably need a slightly larger chunk, and that chunk is an actual consumable business function. So think of it this way. Think of it as an API, but not just a single API. And I'll show you an example of that, because a single API, if you think about it, is not really very useful at all. And everybody talks about how they can connect to Salesforce, connect to Zendesk, connect to, in the example, what's the example? The example is always something deathly simple, like create a opportunity in Salesforce, or update a record, or create a ticket in Zendesk. And that's how you talk about APIs. Is that ever the business problem that somebody's solving? Does that ever give somebody a competitive advantage in the market? No. It's usually a string of APIs that are going to happen together with some other things wrapped around it. And if we go too far, we end up with a platform. So we've got to bring that back in, and we get to this thing that we're calling a composable application, or a composable business functionality, or a single unit of business functionality. So think of it as a microservice with a bit of wrapping on it to make it useful to a business decision maker. So my last point on this slide is there are going to be a wave of technology mergers. They're happening every day. You can't even open up your morning news source if you follow technology without seeing them. I've heard of a number that are about to happen next week. Don't be fooled by that at all. So those technology mergers are happening for a very different reason, and that is a whole nother talk, and that for me goes into really macroeconomics and the inflated values of high-end assets in the world today. That's what's driving that. It's not really because of technology. So you're going to see these mergers, and I believe that we will realize in 12, maybe 24 months that most of those have gone too far, and we'll see that reverse back out again, because the business value is going to be in these composable applications, and you can only put so many things together. And if you want to stay agile, you need to be able to reassemble these things very quickly. So let's, my advice there is to not confuse the two of those things. So composable business applications, let's kind of continue to go in that direction. So ultimately, buyers want to solve very specific problems, right? A buyer, this is a gentleman getting a custom suit. Now, I don't know if any of you still wear suits. If you have been traveling, then maybe you've put one on since COVID started. But I think in everybody's perfect universe, if you could wear a custom suit all the time, you would. Why not? It fits much better. Now, what's the downside? Well, it's usually a lot more expensive. It's very time consuming. You have to find the right tailor. So it's a hard thing to do. But once you've got a custom suit on, is it better than a off the shelf commercially available suit? Yes, absolutely. There's no doubt. And of course, that's why the most expensive suits in the world are custom suits. So we want to get to bespoke software, right? The more customized it is, the more it matches your business, the better. If you're trying to match yourself to the software, that tends to not be quite as good a fit. Now, sure, sometimes you might say, well, I want the best practices. So I want somebody to tell me what those best practices are, and then I'll adapt my business. And I hear that all the time. I often then find most people aren't willing to do it because there is something unique about their business. There's something unique about the way it grew. It has a unique need. So you end up back in the land of customized software. So there's a few ways to get the bespoke software. And this is a graph from, or a graphic from Forrester. And they talk about, you could come there from the land of SaaS application. So SaaS applications have gotten more and more specific. They address very specific use cases now. Much more so than they ever did, and again, every day more and more so. Or you could get there from a low-code platform where you sort of start building this with the building blocks that the low-code software gives you, or you could just build custom software. So that's not really pictured here, but that is the third way. So ultimately, we do want to get to a more customized fit, but there's many ways to get there. So as we start thinking about this customized software, we realize, well, platforms, again, we've talked about them they tend to be just too big, too clunky. In the end, there won't be platforms. There will just be marketplaces. Now, that doesn't mean that tomorrow we're launching a marketplace and putting all of our eggs behind marketplaces, because there's a lot of, and I don't refer to marketplaces in the way we know marketplaces today, but of course, you can see the big players have done that. Salesforce, Force.com, big marketplace. Everybody has their version of a marketplace. The problem is that they also, oftentimes, unless you're the largest platform like a Salesforce, they tend to not work, they tend to fall a little bit short. But by marketplaces, I do mean that you are going to need a place to go to find and grab these consumable units of value, these composable enterprise applications that have business centricity. So again, an API is basically the same thing, but it's not necessarily got the business wrapper that it needs to have. So again, looking at the history of where we've come from, we started with this packaged applications delivered in big projects in the years 2000s. In the 2010s, we went all the way to the SVC, the service microservice kind of format, very loosely coupled, and that has been, and I call that revolution of the 2010s. Well, I'm not calling it. This is a Gartner slide. And then 2020, this is where I feel it kind of will start pulling back, and you can see you're wrapping the SVCs in something else, in these little hexagons that represent these composable applications, or what I would call prepackaged units of business functionality. So it's usually a series of microservices wrapped in something else. And that makes more sense to a business user trying to drive value, trying to drive profitable growth. So what is that smallest unit of business value? So I still think the microservice was great because it's this purely small unit of business value, but it just goes a little too far and it's technical. Gartner calls them PBCs, pre-packaged business capabilities. So again, you have monolithic applications, you have microservices, you have cloud service. You can almost look at that as a continuum, and now you have this idea of PBCs. PBCs is where you're really, really going to deliver value. So prepackaged business value. How do we do that in the world today and in something like ProcessMaker? So again, the microservice was an early version. A composable enterprise is an organization that delivers business outcomes, and it has to be able to adapt to the pace of change. So how do we do that? We do that with this idea of the smallest unit of business value that I can deliver. So that's what I'm arguing, and my interpretation of some of what Gartner writes about, this is not exactly the same, is that that's a slightly larger unit than the microservice. It tends to be a string of microservices and a few things that happen in between. So you get where I'm going. It means that something like a platform or a way of developing these like ProcessMaker is ideally positioned to help you develop these and deliver value. And that is a little hint towards my final sort of point here. So let's look at this and bring it into the realm of architecture of ProcessMaker. So ProcessMaker is built on programming languages. We use a framework, and by the way, this is an important thing to bring out. So I know that we mentioned in a couple earlier talks that the newest iteration of ProcessMaker is built on a framework called Laravel. So that was another really great innovation in the way we're building the current version of ProcessMaker. In the old version of ProcessMaker, we built on our own framework. It turns out that over a longer period of time, that's not a great idea. It was kind of a mistake. So here we're now on top of what we believe to be a beautifully built framework. And so just like we're not going to write our own programming language to develop our application, in today's world, you also shouldn't write your own framework. We're on top of a great framework, gives us fast access to lots of things we need. We also don't write the core language, that BPMN, that existed. We're following a specification there. We do write our version of that in our engine. So we have a core open source engine. We then wrap that engine with some more wrappers to create the core ProcessMaker engine. There's an asynchronous queuing engine which sits alongside it, another very important innovation in the latest iteration of ProcessMaker. But then we have business domains. So again, we used to kind of call these maybe templates, but they didn't get a lot of traction. And if you look at other people's marketplaces, those templates tend to be not very successful in the marketplaces. And from those, so let's not look at them as templates, but rather as these prepackaged units of value. And from that, we can build an application. So what's important here is the following. Where's the value? If you're building a business today, if you're a partner today, where is the value being held? Well, if I'm looking today, then I see that Laravel, there's some value there. I mean, Laravel's purely open source, so you might offer some services around it, but you're not going to deliver a lot of value there. We're delivering a bit more value, but ours is open source too. Our core engine is open source. Our queuing service is open source. So a little more value, but let's keep moving up the value chain. Now we take everything everything that gets built in ProcessMaker goes up to that third layer of those units that you could build, and then ultimately deliver an application. So if you are a partner today, whether you're internally building for your company or you're building for resale, that's where you want to be focusing your efforts, right? And you're saying, well, that's great. Yeah, that's why we use ProcessMaker, so we don't have to rebuild all these things. But what I'm saying is there's the sale of saying, hey, here's a platform, build what you want, Mr. Customer, or spend a good amount of time and really focus on a domain that you're an expert in and deliver a true application there. So what is this? Let's dive a little deeper on this idea. So we call these process ontologies. So it's literally the specific processes that you're going to deliver. Those have ontologies associated with them, or terminology, words associated with them, functionality associated with them that don't necessarily relate to other types of processes. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at BPMN. When you are building in ProcessMaker, you're really using, and again, Ryan, I think mentioned this, Alan mentioned this, you're using very similar to a programming language. It's just 100% visual. So yes, it is no code, but it is still logical. It is still a language. As Neil mentioned, so he had to go and really focus on learning this language. It's a beautifully elegant language, but it is a technical language, visual, but technical. And you can see, look at all the choices I have. When I pull out an intermediate event, that could be a signal catch event, a message catch event, a message throw event, an intermediate conditional catch event. Again, brilliant that this is all visual and I can build very sophisticated things. But if I want to deliver true value, I don't want to have to build those things. And that's why we look to our partners, because your customers, ideally, the business stakeholders, they're not going to build these things, even though they can. So everybody says it's low code, a business analyst can build it. Yes, a business analyst can build this, but business analysts want to consume things immediately that deliver profitable growth to their businesses. So what would that look like? Well, let's say we're building RMA, return merchandise authorization processes for supply chain processes in Europe. So now, instead of just a user task, I want to see very specific things. I want to see search suppliers, order equipment, order material. I want my Docusign task to be in there. I want my GDPR consent process to be in there. I want all this already built. I don't want to have to go and build this. So these are this idea of the smallest possible consumable unit of business value. Let's look at another example, a little more generic or a little more domain specific. So the Docusign example. So we've built a Docusign connector, and this is in ProcessMaker. But again, a connector isn't this example of create a record or create an opportunity in Salesforce. That's a single API call. Everybody does it. You do it through you do it in ProcessMaker as well through the data connector, and you just call out the API. But I've never seen you just rarely see integrations of systems that are that simple. So in the case of Docusign, here it is. We develop it with zero code, perfectly visual, but there's multiple things that have to happen. You're sending an envelope, you're sending both the HTML screen or a template, you need to wait for it to be completed, and you want to get a callback from the Docusign platform to know when it's completed. But if I'm a user, I don't want to see all that. And I certainly don't want to have to build it. I want it already prepackaged for me. And so in this case, here's an example. You pull out our Docusign, and I don't like to call it a connector because it's really a sub-process. It is a series of connectors, and that's the important thing about us. We don't consider ourselves to be a connector platform because connector platforms tend to be a little bit overly simple. They tend to have designers, but those tend to be just sequential designers, and you can't do a lot of the very sophisticated things. So here it's taking connectors and wrapping them in more business value, right? So now I can just drop that into my process, and I've got that business value. It's a sub-process with an icon associated with it, which going back to Neil's presentation, he decided to develop all of these very discrete, small sub-processes. Alan showed additional ways that you can kind of manipulate these things. So the beautiful thing about ProcessMaker, when we talk about publishing and sharing, we are developing, and Alan's team is developing ways to make this even easier so that you can take your very valuable business knowledge, develop it into these sub-processes, publish those for your stakeholders, and make sure they're reutilizable and are delivering true business value. So as a partner, what should you really be trying to build today? Or as an internal person delivering value to internal stakeholders? Well, we think you should be migrating up that stack really as much as you can. So take your domain and geographic expertise, take your specific use cases, don't be a generalist, and leverage a world-class platform like ProcessMaker. Find a way to deliver this as a unique experience in something that you know. So let's look at an example here, and I'm approaching the end of this presentation, and then we'll get to Q&A. So an example of our Applified world. So we are delivering a number of solutions, as I mentioned in the beginning, and I referenced it in a number of places around our kind of strategic focus going forward. So in the last 2 years, we've built a number of award-winning solutions for banking. We do this in a very interesting configuration. We have a whole nother team that builds solutions, and we don't just build any solutions. We're dedicated to just a few solutions, which means we're looking to partner for all of the rest of the universe of possible solutions, which are literally thousands. So this is where we believe we can support you, be the platform that you use to deliver solutions, again, either for resale or for internal consumption. So for us, we've built a very specific application around commercial account opening that leverages very specific units of consumable business value. So for example, it's got the know your customer, know your business checks. It has ways to instantly fund accounts across many types of funding services, which are changing every day as the banking ecosystems change. Contracts and contract compliance, omni-channel. So it has many, many units that can be reutilized and are reutilized across a series of other solutions that we provide. And we've provided very unique experience there. The same thing for treasury onboarding, treasury management, retail account opening, right? These are very, very specific solutions that we're developing. So what does this look like, and what should this look like as you seek to develop this and bring this to, again, if you're inside a large organization, bring it to your CIO, but don't bring it to your chief information officer. Bring it to your chief innovation officer, right? That is where the CIO is headed. The CIO of yesterday has to become a chief innovation officer. And that means, again, delivering more than just technologies, delivering discrete units of business value. So when we talk about our applications, it's very different than talking about a platform. We don't even show a platform. Why would we show a platform? We've already built out the value that we believe our stakeholders are looking for. So we start showing something like a super bank example, where you might log in as a banker, and as a banker see just this. This would be your very unique dashboard and your very easy to get to buttons to open a business account, open a retail account, or just simply request some additional documents, right? Then of course you'll go into a form that you're accustomed to seeing in ProcessMaker, but we'd fill that out. And then we talk about the omni-channel experience. So all these things are already built. The links that you can click on to then log in as the user and then begin your journey. And so this is all you ever see as a user, something that is completely built out and completely tailored for this market, right? So as I wrap up here, what have we learned? Let me bring some of this together. So in summary, I think in the last 5 years, there was really a migration from these packaged mega applications to pure microservices. And that was important and inevitable, and it's allowing for people to get to that data that was housed in these applications and do more agile things with that, build things with that. But that's the point. They're building those things, and people have noticed, hey, we want to have more of that pre-built. So the trend is now shifting and moving back to the business. So again, the trend moved away from the power of the mega software provider to the power of the data. Now it's recognizing that the strategy forces in a business are where the value is delivered. And so let's package that as business packaged units, business packaged functionality, and let's figure out ways to deliver that. Don't be fooled. There will be waves of high financed induced mergers and acquisitions. Those will continue. But that does not mean that we are headed back towards mega platforms. So I think that the way that will get justified is in terms of mega marketplaces, and some of those might work. But again, I think those marketplaces will ultimately have to be super specialized, or maybe not marketplaces at all, just apps. So we're not delivering those banking apps through a marketplace, but we do know exactly who we're delivering them and how we're delivering them. And so they are apps, and they are in discrete chunks. And finally, ProcessMaker is creating pathways for partners and developers to more easily create this kind of business packaged functionality, which may not be a full app, may be parts of an app. And again, I think Neil did a great job of breaking that down and showing how he was planning on reutilizing the things he built. So he was building his own discrete business functionalities that could be reutilized, because he had broken down, in this case, it wasn't a monolithic software platform, but rather a monolithic process design. And that was really important because historically, that is the way people tended to design in our previous version of ProcessMaker, because you didn't have this ability to manipulate data and think about it from the data side of things, often called case management, that is now present in our new platform. So we believe now we're opening up all these new pathways for you developers, you partners to create and package these types of business functionality for delivery in your enterprises.